Morning, everybody. This will be a story and main lessons learned at Thales when transitioning from Confluence application from 20 users to 20,000 users, and in the next future, 60,000 users. So may I start with a question, first of all, who is using Confluence here? Okay, thank you. In terms of number of users, how many under 2,000 users? Okay, between 2,000 and 10,000 users? Okay, and more? Good. And in terms of architecture, the cloud? Sorry. The server? Okay, and the data center? Sorry too? No, happy. Thank you. That's very interesting. So the majority is for the server. Huh? That's where we are too. So this picture, I will come back to it at the end. It's just to tell you where we are, and probably most of you are also, according to those questions. You know this Rogers innovation adoption curve? It's quite interesting because it's standard and it works. So it's Gaussian curve first, where you have, in the early times, innovators, normally 2% of the users. Then slowly you move to early adopters and early majority. And you see the red line, that's where we are today. We are to this between the early majority and late majority with 20,000 users. The yellow curve is the benefit you get when you are persevering in time. And as you see here, we are at a crossing point very soon. And our target is to reach 60,000 users. At the main steps, we received support. The first step was with the information technology department, because when we started, they were not here. The second step is sponsoring of the engineering VP. I will tell you more. It's very important to have a VP. And the third step, where we are today, the third milestone, is the engagement of the top-level management with the board of VPs. So I will start by telling you the first years of this story and focus then on the vision of the engineering department and how, starting with the engineering department sponsoring, it extended to all other departments worldwide within our group. I will give several focus points, mainly on the governance and change management issues and how we deal with them, with some tips I hope will be useful for you. And also, I will tell you how we see the trade-off between flexibility and robustness. And I will finish with a link to the digital transformation. I'm sure you're all involved in digital transformation also. So let's start. At the beginning, we started 10 years ago. So it's quite old story. Only a small team of people, and as you can see, they are very different ones, old, young, expert, beginners, without responsibility or even technical director right from the beginning. So a guessing game is, where am I here? Just by the, without communication, involvement, by word of mouth, we slowly came to 2,000 users. It was very surprising because it was not our goal at the beginning, The server was under my desk, for example. At that time, we didn't have the robustness at all. Very often the server failed, but we had a lot of flexibility. And it was appropriate for the beginning because people could tune the platform according to their various needs. So of course, we used plugins right from the beginning. It was not so well managed because you know that sometimes there is interactions between plugins. And we did that by a kind of crowdfunding. That means when somebody needed a plugin, the steering committee that was only managed by users, for users, found the money somewhere, and it was available for everybody. So this is something that, this is a model that is good when you are beginning. I don't know how many of you started with a small use, like this one, or how many started from scratch with a big use of Confluence. How many started from scratch with a large level of users? Everybody started with a small number of users? That's interesting. I thought more than that will have done the opposite. Okay. 2 years ago, so 8 years later, this platform, surprisingly, has become group-level platform. Why? Because the number of users, always by word of mouth only, came to 12,000. And they were happy. They were happy because we received the support prior to that date from the information technology department. So the server was not anymore under my desk, but well managed. It was a small server. And as you can see, we faced some difficult time when moving from being hidden to becoming a group-level platform. Why? Because as every large groups, you know, we have a lot of tools. We have plenty of tools. Fortunately, we have enterprise architects who now are simplifying these very complex ecosystems. But each of those tools has sponsors. I mean, a VP, a very important manager, and our one had no sponsor. So there was several attempts to remove this platform from the Thales ecosystem. So we survived to this difficult time, and everybody is happy now with that, thanks to the engineering department. And now everybody thinks it's a success. So what is the tip for you? Persevere. So what is the vision of engineering? Engineering is very important within Thales, you know. We have 400 sites worldwide. We have multi-domain activity from avionics to ground transportation systems to cybersecurity to space. I will not name all of them. And we are one Thales. What does that mean? That means that every team anywhere in the world must be able for any client anywhere in the world to build, to deploy, to sell a system. So for that, we absolutely need to share, to be able to share the same practices, the same tools. So that's where comes eTube. eTube stands for eTooled Up Practices Portal. What is it? Within the engineering, we have a very large set of practices with a circle of improvement. You know, that comes from the ground. Then at the corporate level, we have a team of experts, about 100 experts, and they collect these practices, they improve them, and they make them available for the group. It's a continuous circle, okay? So, but it's not easy that every engineer uses those mandatory practices and tools. So what is the vision? The vision is, in order to everybody apply the law, use the same tools and practices, make everybody responsible for the law, defining the law. So that's why we needed a collaborative YouTube. This is the initial version of YouTube on the intranet, so without Confluence at that time. And we have a very complex segmentation of those tools and practices. There is a complexity of a system. It can be just a simple equipment, or it can be a very large and complex system for avionics or battlefield, for example. In terms of tools, we have, this bronze, silver, and gold segmentation. For example, here you can see that the bronze system, the bronze groups of tools, is appropriate for a simple system. But for this kind of system, if you are using the gold set of tools, it will result in overcost. On the opposite, for a complex solution, if you are using a bronze or silver set of tools, it will result in low or non-quality. And you have to use the very complex set of gold tools. So the focus, for that reason, the focus has been given to the ergonomics of those practices, thanks to a real internet web portal. Then how to move to collaborative YouTube from that point? It was necessary to identify a small number of communities. And those communities have been hosted on our Confluence platform, the small one from the beginning. 12 engineering communities. Compared to a space, it was much larger. And the main difficulty is that for the pioneers, it was not a problem to start a space with empty pages. It was not a problem to edit a page written by somebody else. But here, we came to a different kind of users, because we reached those 12,000 users, and we have to move to 60,000. It's not the same users. Those one, for them, to edit a web page is something that can be very difficult, To like a page is something that can be very difficult. My boss, we know that I like this page. What will happen? So it's necessary to help people get trust, so to provide trust, and also to help them to move from that standpoint to where they just read to the point where they will like, comment, modify, create. So, guessing game again. Who thinks this is on the intranet? Nobody? 1, 2. Who thinks it's on Confluence? Okay, more. A lot of people are not thinking at all. Okay. In fact, both answers are good, because we have the same look and feel both on the intranet and on Confluence. For sure, in order to do that, we had to use some plugins. Here, the plugin is Break It. And we are also using RefineWiki. Both of them are very useful. Brickit is used in order to make the connection between the real Confluence look and feel, where people will be able to collaborate thanks to Confluence facilities, and the intranet website. With Brickit, in one click, when we have a version of the referential on Confluence, we can publish it with exactly the final look and feel on the intranet. So as I mentioned to you, in order to make this referential alive, it's absolutely necessary to identify the communities that will feed it. So we have 12 communities within the engineering, and regularly new ones are coming. So to mention the most active ones, we have the agile communities, that mainly, for bronze system, but also agility is a rule within the engineering department. For example, everybody, even the hardware community, they are working in EOBIAS. I don't know if you are familiar with EOBIAS. That's the kind of rooms, where with post-its, where you define very simply your goal, achievements, something similar to the Kanban of Jira, or even to the tables of Trello now. Configuration management, it's something very important. For example, every component within Thales has a unique identifier. You cannot imagine the importance of this practice. Engineering environment, of course, that will move on the cloud. Engineering management, that's very important. We gather every year during 5-6 sessions, a large number of engineering management teams worldwide. They come from Singapore, from Canada, and sometimes these international meetings are in other countries as well. And so they are trained to invite their teams to contribute to those communities. Hardware engineering, surprisingly, is the most mature community we have. I will tell you more about maturity later. Surprisingly, because hardware people, they are not very familiar with software, usually. So why do they have this maturity? Is that because for a large number of years, they are working as a community already, without tools. We have the inner source, that is the most recent community, EVVQ, lean management, model-based and simulation development, product line engineering, and system engineering. So this is just an example of one of those communities. And in fact, they have all the same look. Something you can see here is that there is no the standard left navigation bar on the left. Why? Because in order to welcome new users who are not so familiar with Web 2, we hide it. It's always possible to show it again. And instead of a free navigation, thanks to this navigation bar, they have a guided navigation. So guided navigation can be done using several means. Most of the time, it's by using landing pages, and we have landing pages, you know. It's pages mainly graphical, not too much text. And a second mean is to use icons. And that's what you can see here at the top of this. Maybe I will describe those one now, even if I have a slide later for that. Of course, there is a home icon in order to be able to come back to the root. The frequently asked questions, and this one we implemented with a plugin from Spectrum, who is our partner. This is true also for other icons here for the forum, discussions. Of course, we have news, and we have the governance in order for those news to stay alive. Regularly, new news are published. That's the same for the discussions. I will show you how we manage it in order to make it alive and growing. As you can see at the middle of this bar, icon bar, you have the Eat Up button. This is connected to the main objective of those communities. But now we are extending to other domains where Eat Up is not in the scope. But the same practice is used, and in that case, it's best practices. For example, the quality management, they use the same approach, and instead of Eat Up, for their communities, they have the best practices button. Okay, so this is only on Confluence, of course. Just to highlight you the common feature of those communities, the common design with this very important button. And finally, what is the success of this approach? Because it was not sure it would be a success. It has been adopted by the engineering people. For each of these communities, we have a community manager. That's something very important. At the beginning, they were not happy at all. Why? Because it would make more work for them. But after a few months, they discovered that, in fact, this helped them to do their works. So now they are very happy, even if they spend 10%, 20% of the time on the communities now. Surprisingly, this model also is now largely adopted by other functions. For example, the first one was the marketing people. I can give you an example. Last month, they published, using this model, a call for innovative proposition worldwide. The duration was 1 month. And they collected 400 proposals and received 150,000 likes during that time. So it shows you the level of activity. Sometimes the model we have initiated is extended. For example, for this call of proposal, workflow have been added. And in that case, when we have to develop new functions, either we can find them on the marketplace, and I liked yesterday during the keynote, when it was mentioned that the marketplace is an innovation laboratory. That's very true. But if it's not on the market, we ask to our partner, Spectrum Group, to develop the plugin with us. It was not easy at the beginning because the culture of the IT department and the flexibility we have in that case, you know, sometimes in very short time, are conflicting. but we are progressing. And when extensions are done that way, they are available for all the functions of the group. What the marketing has developed is now available for the engineering, and we will use it. So thanks to the success of this community model, we have decided to develop a complete space model, because now most of the teams, when they ask for the creation of the space, of a new space, and this is something that is carefully managed, you know, we do not want to have thousands of space. Today we have 400, very alive one. And we have to regularly remove old one and authorize or no new ones or merge the new ones. So because the majority of teams now ask for community, instead of create it, you know, at hand, we have a model. And when we ask to create a new space for authorized people, of course, we can choose this model. And in that case, the space comes with the home page, with the icons, and with a set of pages. And for some of these pages, there are predefined blueprints available as well. So that is the result of the sponsoring of the engineering that is beneficial for all the group. So what is the challenge? I like this drawing because, you know, it's come from quantum physics, so that's something else, but who knows? 10 years ago, everybody focused. You know the time? Every focus on knowledge with very complex taxonomies and so on. We had ambitious projects, I'm sure you had too. And most of them, I will not say failed, but the success was not as expected. A few years ago, there was a buzz about enterprise social networks. It's very good because it makes people more comfortable at work, they can communicate together and so on. But now there is a lot of confusion with collaboration because everybody thinks, I know what is collaboration. But few people are aware that collaboration doesn't mean the same thing for me, for you, for you, for you, for you. So we have to find a way to connect the priority given to the knowledge and the priority given to the people. And this is what is possible thanks to Confluence. Confluence is not a leader in social networks. It's a leader in teams working together and working efficiently together. So a very important tips I already mentioned is if you want to reach a larger number of users, give priority to user friendliness. It has been mentioned also yesterday during the keynote with the simplicity. That's exactly the same thing. Regarding the discussions, it is the role of the community manager to be sure that to any question, they will be given an answer. He cannot do that alone because he's in a central team, you know, of experts. But working with him, he has a team. We call this team the editorial board. And those people, they are not at the central headquarters, but they are worldwide. 5, 6 people, it's enough. So they are representative of the operational teams. So if there is a question without answer, that will be the role of the editorial board to find somebody that can provide the answer. It's not sure that in the future, if our collaborative maturity grow, we will continue to work that way. But for the moment, where we are, it is appropriate. So that's another tip also I will share with you, is know your user, know your team, know your maturity. and choose the practice that are appropriate according to that. To promote contents is also something very important. We identified quite later that there was no enough communication, even with communities, you know. You need to communicate, make people aware that it exists and the benefit it can bring. Another tip is to develop your own blueprints. Why? Because what is the main difference between a blueprint and editing a page is that you don't have to edit the page, you know. If you start to build very complex pages, that's good. But when somebody that's new edits it, he sees blocks with strange names, he clicks on it, sometimes he will remove it because the page is broken. Thanks to blueprints, you can avoid that because you have just a dialog window with a predefined list, for example, of value you can choose. People do not have to edit the page. And, special bonus, you have the index of all those pages. That's the mechanism of the blueprints. The difficult point is that it's easy to create a model, a template. It's not very easy to create a blueprint because you have to use the SDK. So of course, it's more parameters than real programmation, but it requires special skills, and also because it is something that is agile. You have to face the difference of culture between the IT department and agile practices. But it's possible. Monitoring, that's another tip, is very important. But what to monitor? So you have to be careful with that. You have to define, according to your needs, what you want to monitor. We didn't find on the marketplace the appropriate plugin for that, so we co-developed it with Spectrum. I will show it to you just after. And 2 times a month, we are sharing the metrics with all the engineering communities. And our objective is to have a continuous growth. And for the moment, it works well. So this is an example of this analytics plugin. As you can see, according to the colors you can see here, we have 4 main categories of metrics. We have the engagement. Engagement is just to come and to read a page. Collaboration is when you are starting to like or to comment. Participation is when you are starting to modify or create a page. And communication is when you are sharing your pages. So we have defined metrics for all of those categories. And as you can see, we can define the time frame freely. And we have a map vision also. That's quite similar to Google Analytics, but customized for us. You can focus on a given country, for example. And the choice we have made is in order to be able to maintain this plugin, this specific plugin, we asked our partner to make it available in the marketplace. So that's why it's a co-development. We have the needs, they know how to do it, they put it in the marketplace, and we get the maintenance thanks to specific agreement and the marketplace maintenance for the marketplace. So be careful with these metrics because you have to know the business impact. For example, the learning cycle, the product quality, reducing reworks, or improve problem solving. And you have to connect that with the metrics. So associated to those metrics, we have also tailored and defined a specific community maturity level. There is plenty of such models worldwide you can find on the internet, but this one has been tailored according to our communities. So the important point is that you have to know where is your community, and you have to know what are the next steps in order to move from one level to the next one. Most of our communities currently, they are at level 2 or 3. So as you see, we still have a margin for progress. So I will not comment the user experience sessions because that's something that is quite familiar in ergonomics, you know. Just you see a user, you give him a use case, and you observe what he does, and you will have surprise in order to define next improvement to be done. I will show you the toolkits because in terms of communication and get the real involvement of community manager is very important. So we have several toolkits. This one is a toolkit for the community managers. It's a kind of gamification, you know. It helps them to get the intuition of what is required from them. The community manager is on the left. The support team, I'm part of it. And you see the editorial team of the community as well. So that's just an example for the level 1 initiate. Before to create the community, you have to know precisely what is the objective. Do not start a community by not knowing that. Just, oh, it's nice, I like those communities, I will make my one. No. You have very carefully to define your objectives. Taking into account what does exist as an environment for you already. And you have to define a launch strategy. That means you will need probably several months where the community will be hidden, but you will provide content. And when this community starts, it is already alive. That's the last example for this community manager's toolkits. It's about the journey. So you see that it's required that the community manager regularly meets with the sponsor, that he meets with other community managers in engineering 2 times a week in an ABEA meeting. Each week, he had to meet with the editorial team, as it is done by phone, of course, because people are in different places in the world. Bring your topic is very important. That's a meeting, monthly meeting, where all the community managers meet together with questions. And the support team, myself and my colleague, we help them answer those questions. And of course, support, because we are already available to help them. So this presentation comes to the end, so I will go quickly again to the importance of the governance. At the beginning, in the early years, we had a users governance. It was appropriate. But now, with the objective we have, the company level, we needed to have a very strong governance. I mentioned the role of the sponsor, who usually has several communities to sponsor. The role of the community manager, and most probably we will define in the short future, the next future, a specific profile in terms of recruitment in order to identify the best community managers. The editorial team, people on the ground, they are the ambassadors, the first ambassadors, and they need to extend this network of ambassadors. The contributors, so at the beginning, they will do small things, just read, and progressively they will be more ambitious till writing new pages, and the readers. Finally, I would like to highlight the necessity to manage both flexibility and robustness. What has made the success of this platform initially was the flexibility. And it's strange, but the success led us to a situation where we had to give priority to the robustness and not flexibility. I remember during the first meetings with the people in charge of managing the platform, they told us, okay, you will have one change of the platform per year. That means if you want a new plugin or once a year. So the engineering VP, fortunately he was here, he said, no, it's impossible. Okay, it must be robust. It's very important. It was not robust at all, but it must be flexible. So we came to a trade-off once a month. That's where we are today. But our objective is to move to a full DevOps management of the platform, where we will get both flexibility and robustness. How will that be possible? In terms of architecture, most probably we will have to move to the data center architecture. We are starting to evaluate it. Of course, it's difficult because not so much technically, but in terms of cost, it's not at all the same cost. And our buyers, they have to change their mindset and move. Of course, they know what is the total cost of ownership. That's their business. But still, they focus on the acquisition cost. So we have to work with them, and that's not easy, in order to make a very in-depth total cost of ownership analysis. And I'm sure the conclusion will be that if we come to a cost per user, it's less expensive than the server version. But this is the work that will be done during the next years. Finally, I come back to the initial curve. We are in a time of digital transformation. What will be the future? I would like to focus on the on the green and blue arrows. The blue one, it means that we can change everything. Okay, let's define a new platform. Start from scratch. Very up to date, last technologies. What is it? Is it to restart at the beginning of this curve? Maybe in a shorter time, because in terms of usage, we have progressed. But it's new. The other possibility, that means to keep exactly the same tool we have. For example, to try to make Confluence our enterprise platform. Most probably it's not realistic, because, as I mentioned during this presentation, Confluence is for team working. And team working is not the only thing we do within Thales, So my hypothesis, I hope it will come true, is that we need both. We need a completely new platform with a new front end, but at the back end, we have to keep what has proven to be successful, and Confluence is one of them. So in that, if we use this approach, I'm sure Confluence will be a very important contributor to the success of the new digital platform from Thales.